Well, hello and welcome to Mark My Words, which is a podcast series offering a glimpse into alternative paradigms hiding just beneath the surface of everyday life, where our first question of the day is always, what if? And our question today is, what if we continue on? And those of you who listen to our previous podcast will know and recognize that last time we all got together, we more or less agreed to disagree. Well, I'm Paul Uhrig, and we have Mark Cornelius with us once again. Mark is the author of Rut Management. He's also the author of Marginalized, and one more that we need to, that really applies to some of this as well, is Unmeasuring. Mark, we have agreed not to disagree. How do we get there? And I know that you've got a couple of terms that you'd like to pick up on this because it kind of extends this notion of what happens with our disagreements or our agreements.
Uh,
Hello, Mark.
Thanks, Paul. And I'm trying to get us to the. I should be sharing a screen here. Are you seeing a question on there? Is it showing up yet?
Actually, I'm still seeing you, my good man.
Okay. Well, then I've got to do a better job here. Speaking of agreeing to agree, let's agree that I need to do a better job here. So we're going to pull that up, and it is. For some reason, I am not sharing screens here the way I want to. So let me share screens, and then we're going to start this thing all over again, Paul. But I can't seem to. Oh, wait a minute. There. Is it showing up now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Never mind. We're not going to start over again. We're just going to plow through this.
I love it. What is the difference between quid pro quo and ceteris paribus?
Or
Mark, I'm going to hand that over to you.
Southern vernacular, ceteris paribus. Okay. I'm not going to answer that question quite yet. Those are Latin terms, and we're immediately going to turn off so people go, oh no, are we going back to school here? And we're going to have some fun with this, but we are going to at least define those two. Some would say it's all Greek to me, but actually it is Latin. And here is what those two phrases actually mean in everyday English. Quid pro quo means something for something. And ceteris paribus means all things being equal. Okay, the sum of all things is equal. So, Paul, what does that mean to you as far as when you're in everyday life, are you out to get something for something, or do you see all things being equal on the table in front of
Well, in many instances, I am actually leaning very hard into the something for something world, tit for tat. I give you something, and sometimes my expectations are is that I receive something in return. The all things being equal, which is very interesting for me at least, because and by the way, I hadn't heard ceteris paribus since college, but and I did hear it in the Latin way as opposed to the Southern manner. But all of the things being equal usually means that we have found no exceptions to the rules that we know of at this point, uh, and therefore the judgment gets passed as is, if you will. So all things being equal, we're going out. We'll meet at such and such a time or whatever. So I really lean in my world. I really lean more into the quid pro quo.
you? Okay, and honestly, most of us do. That is the relationship that we're going to talk about today. See, what quid pro quo really defines is what we call in today's world, and hey, folks, let's look at it, a contract relationship. Okay, when
That's
you
right.
go in to buy a product, you're paying money for something that you're going to get use out of. the person who's selling it to you is getting the money. You're not in it for the same reason. They're getting money, you're getting a product. Okay, that works real well until something breaks down on the product, or they find out your money's no good, and then all of a sudden you got a problem. You can work that right into one of everybody's favorite things, a sports event. Okay, is everyone out of it? In it for the same reason? Well, you've got two or more teams who are not in it for the same reason. Everyone says, "Oh, you're just in it to play," the good old Vince Lombardi thing. Uh-uh. Somebody is going to win. And conversely, someone is going to lose. Okay. And if it were just a matter, we're all in it to play the game, well, that sounds nice, but we wouldn't get the ratings on TV we did it. That just wouldn't happen.
I get it. I get it. Well, you know what, Mark? It also sounds like what you're talking about with the contract is that it's more transactional than relational.
Thank you.
This is a transaction that's going on with quid pro quo.
That is correct.
And as opposed to something that may be a little bit longer lasting, as in terms of, as you have mentioned before, because you and I have spoken about this covenant contract element before.
Yep.
And what I've heard you say in the past, as in my attempt to be a better listener, I've heard you say that there are some things that we need to really go deeper on between covenants and contracts. So lead us there, my good man.
What's a covenant anyway? I mean, we talked about it before, but I think we might need a little review on that because, I can use Latin terms to define it, and nothing wrong with that. But okay, by the way, well, let's just drop back to Rodney King for just a second here. This is the contract side of things. Can't we just all get along? And Rodney, I hate to tell you, in a contract society, no, we can't. Okay, we can't. It's just a fact in a contract society. Now, is a contract society the best way to go? That's why we want to look at the other definitions. Okay, and I'm just skipping through things because we kind of covered this. Contracts have become our primary way to seek and marginalize relationships between one another. There's that word again that we talked about. In other words, if I'm going to get what I want, I can't possibly be as interested in what you want. I might be interested. I might want you to be happy. But first things first, Paul. First things first. Okay? Let's get my part of the deal figured out. You'll be secondary. And that marginalizes you.
Yeah, that is well said. It's kind of like when you look at a legal contract. We're not necessarily talking strictly about legal contracts, but when you see party of the first part versus party of the second part. And for me, that's the way I was looking at what your statement when this popped up. I noticed, the primary way we seek to marginalize, because that by definition alone puts two people or two, not necessarily two people, but two entities in two different spots.
Yes.
So it's very interesting the way that you've kind of thrown that out at us.
Well, and we don't think about it. It's so ingrained. And okay, I'm gonna segue a second here just to warn folks who are listening. We might go a little long here today.
Good call. We may just go a little longer.
We might go a little long. Find out. We'll see how efficient we can be. But and that is going to be our covenant agreement. We'll try to get through this all together and come to agreement. But we live in a contractual world. Everything you do from the moment you wake up to your alarm clock, which tells you that you have to get certain things done to please not only your family and yourself, but other people along the way. That's a contract. Okay. I go to work, I do my job, I get paid. Your boss or your employer or your partners think a little differently. I want Mark to do what I need him to do and get it done in an efficient manner, and then I'll pay him, okay? Or I'll give him a reward, all right? All contractual, quid something for something, quid pro quo. All right. So that's, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Continue your idea. I didn't mean to interrupt you there because you prompted me.
All right. So in that, there's a sense of marginalization. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me. Yeah. That's going to put you on a much different level than me. And
Now,
it's a self.
pardon me for interrupting there, because what you just said sparked me to some of the technique that you have been talking about in terms of listening
Yeah.
and measuring, or better yet, unmeasuring.
Oh,
As you know, your book's transition with there's a particular thread going through there, and this has just sparked that for me. When we form contracts, oftentimes do we, because of what you've just stated about I want something, you want something, do we become so marginalized that we stop listening?
well, now you're talking about whether we break or make our contract. There should be a ruler on the front screen. Is that showing up? What's showing up on the screen now? Tell me so I know.
Actually, it just says contracts have become the primary way we seek.
Okay, I'm going to see. This is my contract with myself. I'm not doing as well as I need to be doing. So hold on. I'm going to stop sharing this and go to another screen and share that screen. There we go. All
There
right.
we go, broken ruler.
So when you're listening well, and you just nailed it, Paul. If you're listening well to what the other person is saying, or let's even take that to a broader sense, in listening, that could be eyes, ears, experience, all of that. If you are watching what other people are doing and saying, okay, this meets my needs, rather than, let's see what we can do together to get our needs on a higher level done, that's a marginalized relationship. And as that's going to be difficult for a lot of us, including me, to try to figure to accept. Wait a minute. You want me to have the interests and needs of other people equal to myself? Equal? I mean, honestly, equal? Come on. No. Me first, you second. Okay. That's the difference between a contract relationship and what we note as a covenant relationship. So that's where we're going with all of this. And we've kind of circled right back around to where I wanted to get. I've got to pull up another screen. Got to go back to my sharing. And here we are. So,
Excellent.
hey, I made it. Okay. There's a summary of it right there. Contracts marginalized, covenants demarginalized. There is a component to covenants that is so critical in something we have to know. Oh, sorry. That is, in a covenant, excuse me, I had to check my notes there. In a covenant, everybody has the same goal. So let's think of a good example of that. Okay, you wake up in the morning and you're going to go to work, right? Or you're going to apply yourself to some effort that's going to go out there. Now, if you're thinking, okay, I've got to get on the road and I've got to drive around all those other cars on the freeway. And again, I'm just using hyperbole and trying to get an image in your mind. You're on the road, and either somebody's going to pass you on the road, or you're going to pass somebody on the road, and you're all driving the same direction. And that sounds good, and that sounds, like everyday life. But are you driving to the same place? No. Are you doing the same thing together? No. So what if there was one place we were all headed on that freeway of life, and we're all headed there together in a way that okay, oh my gosh, that car behind me needs help. They're not getting with the program. They're slowing down or speeding up. Maybe I need to help them somehow. Maybe I need to throw out a rope, tie, again, metaphorically, tie the rope to the car and help tow them in so that we're all getting to the same place. And oh, yeah, our destination is not individual work areas, but the same work area. Uh-oh, Mark just described a socialistic concept. We all have the same work for the same purpose, for the same master. No. Okay. This is where it might run into a little bit of problem with, the way we look at things. You have social contracts where you say somebody has made up a rule, and we, in order to get what we want, have to obey and help them with what they want. That's a social contract. Honestly, if you were in a socialized society, a government with a socialized government, you're not really getting what you want. You're getting what they want. You just happen to get a reward of some sort for doing what you are asked to do all together collectively. Wow, here we go. So what would happen if everyone were to find a common, higher purpose? Let's even dare say the highest purpose, whatever that is. I'm not going to throw that out right now, what an answer to that is. But if we all said we are all in it to achieve the very same thing, there is call it a building at the end of the highway. That building is where we all want to end up. Every one of us. Not because someone said we should, but because whoever built that building said, here's a great building, you want part of it? Yes, we all are in this together. That is the equalness of it, of a covenant. It's a relationship based on everyone commonly agreeing and wholeheartedly endorsing the idea that they have the same destination, the same purpose, the same desire for the same result, equal for equal.
I love what you've said about and the notion of traveling the path, because this brings us back into rut management
Oh my goodness.
with our destination. So I'll let you continue on with this, Mark.
Well, let's talk about this for a second. I'm gonna go to my notes here because I want to make sure I'm not leaving anything out. The problem with a contract is that it leaves someone wanting. Okay, someone's going to be wanting because contracts, as we know by nature, don't always work. And once a contract is finalized and done, and you paid off your debt if you've got in a car or whatever it is, okay, now what? Now what do we do? Well, we have to enter into another contract, and we have to do those negotiations. And in the back of my mind, that last contract, I didn't get everything I wanted. The interest rate was too high. So I'm going to negotiate a little more differently this time. And maybe I'm not negotiating with the same people, but I'm saying I'm going to, oh, dare I say, I'm going to take advantage of this person based on someone else taking advantage of me in the past. That may sound cynical, but it's a reality that is woven into what we have today. Now, with a covenant, that doesn't happen because the contract never, or excuse me, the covenant never ends. It is a continued effort. We are all in this for the same thing. It is much more of a broad look at life. And if we can find that greater purpose, that's something that's going to be a life goal, not just a day-to-day goal. Now, the day-to-day is going to be affected by that, sure. And I know we're talking in very grandiose terminology here, but if I and Paul and our neighborhood and our community all want to make sure that as of today, not one person, not one person goes without their basic needs every day. Okay. And we all conclude this and we all say, that is a great goal. Yes, I'm on board 100%, not 99%, 100%. Let's all chase that. That starts a mindset going, right? Okay. And I'm just using that as an example. If everyone wants to say, well, I don't care about the needs of others, fine, that's not a covenant you would buy into. But let's say we all did, for the sake of discussion here. Everyone, every day would be waking up and saying, hey, what can we all do to make sure this is accomplished without any question whatsoever, without any competition? I don't get anything more out of it than Mark gets out of it, than Paul gets out of it, but that's okay because we all want the same exact thing. And that's the word that you have to be careful to put in there. Exact. I could get biblical on you and talk about, how God worked with people and said, here's my deal. Do you want in on it? For lack of a better term. Do you want in on my plan? And people said, yes, we do. I say Moses said, hey, God says we can get to this new promised land. Do you want in on it? Yes, we do. Well, did they really? No, they didn't. Or eventually 40 years later they did, but it took a while for them to get that mindset going. And that's the whole part. Now, do we have examples of that today? I think biblically we still do, but I'm going to take it to another word that we use today for covenants. It's the closest word we have for it. I think it's misrepresented a lot of times, but treaty would be the right way to look at a covenant. A treaty is saying, let's put all our differences aside. Let's not marginalize anyone at the table. None of us. Just get rid of that stuff. And let's work with a clean slate, and let's come up with a plan for all of us to do the right thing, even if it means some of us have to sacrifice, some don't, but we must all agree on the higher purpose first. First and foremost.
So what you're saying, because I'm listening here, we have to develop skills to be able to get to where you're talking about, which is actually part of the rut path. As we pick up tools to get to the next place, our next area in the rut path, we're really looking for just exactly what you're talking about. We're looking for things that are relational rather than transactional. Am I correct?
Not only are you correct, you're spot on, and it brings back, you mentioned the word listening. When you sit down at the table, Paul, to listen to someone, are you listening to make sure that your needs are met? Or are you listening to better understand who everyone else at the table is first? So that if I know when I sit down at the table who you are, and who, John and Betty and, whoever else is at the table, if I get to know who they are and listen adequately, and then say, okay, now I have a complete and clear understanding of who we all are. Now can we come to some agreement? Oh, and by the way, conversely, they have to do the same thing with me. This is not easy stuff. This is this is not the thing that gets us, a 5-minute discourse. It is something that has to be very carefully done. And it sounds utopian. Well, you know what? It's better than utopian, because if we can all start to really, if we can all start to stop giving our opinions and giving our way, my way, as the only example that's right, and we start clearing all that brush and garbage away, then we can start saying, okay, what is a greater thing than even I have been able to conceive? What is the greatest thing of all that we can all achieve together? Some would just say, to live every day, to get up and breathe clean air and be happy. What? Even that sounds a little individualistic, doesn't it? So what can we do as a group? First of all, we have to start with a very basic concept. We've got to listen. We're right back to that. And in listening, I'm not talking about just using my ears a couple of times to hear keywords that I want to hear. I'm talking about really, truly developing a relationship by understanding somebody more deeply than maybe even I understand myself.
I think you're leading us into something else that you want to say. Unfortunately, we had an adult dose right here, and I'm sure that some of our listeners will, and I use that term with the most respect, our listeners will have some questions. And Mark, this might be a time for us in this particular episode to throw your contact information up so that we can carry on this conversation and find out what destination you're sending us toward with this notion of contracts and covenants. I find it very interesting. It runs very deep.
Well, thanks. And here's, Paul, you just nailed it. You talked about our listeners or our audience. I'm just going to call you thinkers out there. This is where we all have to really start using this thing and this thing to think and process through what we're trying to accomplish. It is hard stuff. This is not something that you and I have just come up with in an afternoon. This is something we've been working on for years and years. Okay, is that something that people want to join into? Well, if you do, thinkers, then yeah, come on. We want you here. We want to make sure that you are, hold on here, if I can get to the right screen. I want to do that so badly. Do I have it here? Let's see.
Actually, I do see your broken ruler there from just a few minutes ago.
That's not what I was after. I was after this. I don't know. Hold on here.
While you're doing that, Mark, I will let the listeners know, the thinkers know, that that broken ruler is a more or less of a logo for your book, Unmeasuring.
Yes, it is.
And that's a very neat little thing that you've got there that begs many questions.
Thank you very much. Well, we're going to break some other quote unquote rules here by saying, look, guys and ladies, and whoever else is out there in whatever you want to consider yourself, if you're thinking about this right, if you're looking at this from a critical thinking standpoint, start clearing away the clutter of what your opinion is and start looking for ways for each and every one of us to come to a common higher understanding. And that sounds common higher understanding. Wow. We exist for a reason, don't we? We exist.
That's right.
Now, some of you may not agree with that. You might just say, hey, I was born, I'm going to die. I was dust, and someday I'll be dirt. Well, okay. If that's where you are. I'm not there. And I think most people, in a broader sense, are not there. There is something beyond that we're chasing, and we were, for lack of a better term, created to be. Okay?
So in our next episode, we might have to start tackling some of this destination that you've been talking about. So
what is truth?
yeah, what is truth? And truth is a final destination, correct?
I
Or shall we leave that to the listener, to our thinkers, to ask questions?
That to our thinkers. Just that term was thrown out by a guy about 2,200 years ago. What is truth? By the way, he knew what quid pro quo was. That was Pontius Pilate. He was not Greek. He was Italian.
Roman.
and I'm sure he knew the term quid pro quo. He wanted something for something. And he was asking, what is truth? But he was probably asking it for another reason. Hey, if I can figure out what truth is, I'm going to get what I want out of this, right?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
Now, that's an assumption. I didn't know Pontius myself, but
In our next segment, in our next episode, we'll have to tackle that, and I will mark this as something, for lack of a better word, Mark. I will go ahead and bring us back into our technique of listening and reminding the thinkers what you've just some of the items that you've just said in our topic today. In the meantime, here's the contact information on how to get in touch with us.
absolutely. Thanks, Paul. And good listening on your part, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you. And same to you as always. I guess it's about time to end this episode, unless you want to just go ahead and read these things out for our thinkers here. It's up to you.
Well, thinkers, keep asking what if through the whole week. What if I could live in a covenant versus a contract society? What if we could all pursue that? What would that look like? And in the meantime, you can email opinions or thoughts or questions to markcwrights@gmail.com, Facebook page. You can certainly give input there. We'd love to see you and hear from you. And we're getting more people joining in, so that's great news. There's a website you can go to see the books and see other options of books and maybe even considerations of things that you haven't looked at before. Love to have you try to grab those and give us your opinions after reading. And then finally, last but not least, our YouTube channel link, so you can go in and look at all our episodes. Now 13 in totality, and we're going to go with 2 more here to complete this series. Or more, who knows?
It all depends on how this thing where this thing takes us, and how we approach some of these things, Mark. And I really thank you. I guess this ends our session today. And thanks everybody for watching or listening. And I guess we'll get back to it and very soon.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. And I am going to end this recording as of now. So long, thinkers. Keep thinking.